And we return back here on 1480 WHBC. John Bozeka along with you on live and local. And as always, we are joined by David Pepper, the Ohio Democratic Party chair. A pleasure to always have him on our show, as we do so many times. David, how are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. It's been a wild couple of days with high school football getting back to full swing here in the state of Ohio. But, it's kind of crazy with everything going on. But the big news nationally right now is the Ohio Democrat.
Wait, they pay attention to high school football in Canton? I can't believe that.
No, we hate high school football around here. We really do. So if you were wondering, by the way, you can watch us right now on our WHBC live video stream as well. David, the Ohio Democratic Party, and the Ohio Democratic Party and the Democratic National Convention going on this week. Your thoughts 2 days through with everything going on so far right now?
My main thought is I feel kind of good because I kept predicting and I might have said this to you in a prior show. I always thought, with a little time to prepare, a virtual convention, you could be actually really creative with it, make it kind of fun, a little different than just the same old. And actually, I think that's what we've seen. The roll call last night was, I think, very cool. I mean, I don't care what party you're in. To see a video from every state in the country and other territories, I thought was really awesome. Some of the speeches, I think it's almost more personal because it's just almost a one-on-one conversation. So, First Lady Obama, I thought Joe Biden was awesome last night. It was cool to see some Ohioans, Tim Ryan and Kathleen Clyde last night. So overall, I mean, I'll just tell you, I've enjoyed it, but I also just watching and hearing from folks, I think people are really excited that despite the fact that we're not really in Milwaukee, most of us, it's actually been quite a cool experience so far. And I think, it's only going to get more exciting in the next 2 nights.
I know the one criticism that I've read a lot of is that people have said that they don't think it's as authentic because it is pre-recorded. Right. How do you feel about that?
So we had our own convention, and to run something like this, I can't tell what's pre-recorded and what's live. I don't know, but I can tell you that the idea that you'd put all your eggs in one basket of something this complex live, that would be like a kamikaze mission. I just think that would be I mean, you do this for a living, you start having 10 moving parts all live with the challenge of Zoom, and internet access. And, we just spent a few minutes trying to get the sound right ourselves, right? I think that would be very, very irresponsible. So my guess is some of it's live, some of it's not. But I think the overall product is actually very, very good. And I actually think, like some of these speeches, I'm glad Joe Biden last night was not interrupted every 5 seconds by applause. I actually thought it was better to just hear what she had to say without, in a way that gets inauthentic. To hear her talk just directly to camera about Joe Biden, about Beau Biden, about the challenges of their family, I actually thought that was incredibly authentic and really powerful.
Absolutely. That's David Pepper. He is the Ohio Democratic Party chair. We are talking about the Democratic National Convention currently taking place. What did you feel of the first 2 nights? Was the one highlight, if you could pick one thing that stood out above the rest to you? Yeah.
It's funny you asked that because I was thinking, I pretty active on Twitter, as you may have seen. And I was thinking asking that myself. It has to be at this point Michelle Obama. I mean, that was as effective, both motivating, inspiring, and, as you would know, tough, but overall as effective as a political speech as I've ever seen. And I've heard that from others, including people who aren't necessarily Democrats. I mean, that was a really, really powerful. There just aren't a lot of people left in our country right now with credibility way beyond party. And the reason she's named Most Admired Woman every year, and I don't think it's even close, is she's one of those people. I mean, her book just exploded. People were reading it, not just to read about Michelle Obama, but to actually about their own lives. And I think that what she said was very, very, very effective. So I think that's the highlight. I joked yesterday, I wouldn't want to follow her for any time the next 3 days. I think it was that good. I mean, as one of Obama's top people said yesterday, it may be tough for Barack Obama to accept the fact that he gave the second best speech in his own household at the convention. I thought it was that powerful. And Trump's lashing out and saying it was angry. It was not. I mean, she was direct but powerful, and I think captured the way a lot of people feel about what's going on right now.
The other thing that's been interesting throughout this is not just how it's virtual, how it's pre-recorded, how some of it is live, some of it isn't, but also the fact that you have a Republican like a John Kasich participating in this. Your thoughts on what the former governor of Ohio said, and did you feel it was important to have a Republican voice heard during this?
I mean, I will say what struck me is there was so much focus on Kasich. It's been incredible how many Republicans have appeared. You know, Colin Powell, Sidney McCain. I mean, that video last night about John McCain and Joe Biden's friendship was incredible. We need more of that in politics. Christine Todd Whitman. So, yeah, Kasich's voice, I think, does matter for a lot of, voters in Ohio who feel like he does. Hey, I'm a Republican, but Donald Trump is terrible. I mean, I think there's a lot of voters who feel that way. We see it in the Lincoln Project. We see it in the guy I ran against for county commission in Hamilton County. We had the nastiest election. I ended up winning by a little bit. His name was Phil Heimlich. He was as conservative as it got back when we had that election. He's part of the Lincoln Project trying to defeat Donald Trump. And so I think the voice of Republicans, whether it be Kasich or Christine Todd Whitman or Colin Powell or Sidney McCain, I think for people who are on the fence, and here's why it matters, those people are going to be getting all sorts of horrific ads about Joe Biden from Donald Trump in the next 70-something days. So there's going to be a lot of incoming, and to have Republicans stand up and say, no, that they also are troubled by Trump, but they're also saying, but we know Joe Biden. Sidney McCain is saying John McCain and Joe Biden were friends. I think that's a very important message for these Republicans who are on the fence, who are going to hear a bunch of nonsense about Joe Biden, to think, well, a bunch of Republicans we trust actually tell us he's a good guy. So I think those voices, I don't think Democrats are sitting around cheering for, John Kasich. Most aren't, because we fought with him on some things in Ohio. Let's be clear about that. But I think there's a whole group of voters out there that those voices are a signal to that it's okay to leave your comfort zone in this election and vote for a Democrat, because the alternative is Donald Trump, and Joe Biden actually has a long distinguished career. I mean, I think it was Tom Carper, his fellow senator from Delaware, who happens to be a friend, who said he's the finest public servant he's ever seen. And I think that's the kind of frame that hopefully gets people who know Trump is terrible are going to be, the attempt will be to scare them of Biden, for them to say, you know what, I've heard from enough Republicans, he's a decent guy, I'm voting for him.
Last couple thoughts with David Pepper here, who's the Ohio Democratic Party chair, talking about the Democratic National Convention. To play devil's advocate for a moment, I know the big concern of so many voters is the well-being of Joe Biden, the age of Joe Biden. What do you say to those voters? What do you just say to someone that says he's not mentally equipped anymore to take the office?
This reminds me of the president's new thing about Kamala Harris not being eligible. Ignore these things are sort of the acts of desperation from a desperate president. They are going to do. I mean, they tried to do it with Ukraine. They are working hard on the post office. They are doing everything in their power to take an election that they believe they're going to lose and flip it. So that's the kind of thing these voters. This is what I talk about. That's what these voters who are on the fence are going to hear, and that's why having not just Democrats say that's ridiculous, but having John Kasich, having Sidney McCain, Colin Powell saying this guy's ready to go. I mean, let's be honest. Except for maybe, and this will be a nice bipartisan moment, except for maybe George Herbert Walker Bush, Joe Biden comes to this with as much experience as anyone who's ever run for president. I mean, probably more than the first Bush. So the idea that they're going to try and act like he's not ready to be president, I mean, I don't know anyone who's had his history in the Senate in the middle of so many. I mean, the idea, this was amazing to me. that John McCain was an aide to Biden. Now, John McCain was in Washington a long time as a House member and senator. That shows you how long Biden has been on the scene. So some may say, well, that's a long time, but it certainly is a rebuttal to the idea that he's not ready to be president. This is a guy as experienced to be president as anyone in the history of our country, and trying to hit him on that stuff. I mean, he made it through a primary where he was up on stage with dozens of young whippersnappers, some of whom were throwing it at him, and he won that primary decisively in the end. So he's certainly ready for prime time, and I'm confident of that, and I'm most importantly excited for when he gets there to start doing the job. I will say, though, I mean, we are going to have a dream team, I believe, in the end, of cabinet members and others, and so it'll be Biden doing a great job, but I also think, unlike Betsy DeVos, Ben Carson, we're stuck with a cabinet that's just awful. I mean, some of them had to resign because of different problems. The current acting Homeland Security Director was there illegally. So Biden, Kamala Harris will be great, but I think you're going to see a superstar lineup of an entire team that will do great things, and they're all ready to go from day one.
David Pepper, Ohio Democratic Party chair, and talking about the Democratic National Convention as we know it right now. Quickly here, David, we have a couple seconds here while we still have a moment. Political parties, I know this is always a point of discussion of how, people are so partisan for their party, but it almost seems like the parties that we knew maybe 5-6 years ago are completely different in a sense. It seems like, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the crux of what I'm getting at, is that it just seems like we don't have the same political parties that we did 5-6 years ago. And maybe it's not on both sides. Maybe it's just on one side. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I worry that our two-party system is being challenged, but it's because one party has gone off the reservation. I mean, last night you literally saw, in the last 2 nights, you've seen John Kasich, all these other Republicans say they're fine with Biden. At the DNC convention, that would suggest that the Democratic Party must be a pretty big tent right now, that you have moderate Democrats more on the progressive wing, all unified saying we're with Biden, and you have another party that doesn't believe wearing masks makes sense, or that literally is following Donald Trump over a cliff with Russia, shutting down the post office. I mean, just things that makes no sense and frankly are way out of the mainstream. I mean, when they're against masks, they're with 20% of the people or less. So I don't think I'm not saying you say this, but when I hear there's sort of a both sides issue with parties, one side is fighting for affordable care, pre-existing conditions, reasonable legislation around gun safety. These are all mainstream positions. Dealing with climate change, that's a mainstream position. That's not way off. And I mean, if you did a poll on everything I just mentioned, we're talking 50 to 60% of Americans would support everything I just said. That's the heart of the Democratic Party. We may have disagreements about how to do it, but the heart of it is the issues we're bringing to the table, whether it's, frankly, Speaker Pelosi, Tim Ryan, Joe Manchin, Bernie. Those are all within the mainstream of where Americans are. They want more affordable health care. They want science to lead the response to COVID. They want to see minimum wage increased. There's nothing way off base about those things with the American people if you look at any poll. The things that the Trump side wants are literally with 20 or 30% of the voters at best. In some cases, 20% or less. I mean, the behavior at the State House of Ohio, Nino Vitale, getting rid of Dr. Acton, that was something that probably 20% or fewer people in the state would have agreed with. Dr. Acton I've seen polling, she became the single most respected person in the state of Ohio in about 3 months. Across the board, Republican, Democrat. These far-right Republicans got rid of her. That's their party doing that. We're Democrats. This is the Republicans' governor's health director. We all supported her. So I actually do think one party has gone off the rails. And I think the big question that we'll all be looking at in the coming months is, especially if Donald Trump loses, what happens to that party? Do they rally around Donald Trump Jr. and Tom Cotton and Jim Jordan, in continuing in that crazy direction to the right that has made them, I mean, at risk of losing places they should never even be close to losing? Or do people say, you know what, we need to be back to what John McCain was about? Or people, frankly, even more moderate than John McCain? That's going to be their issue, because I think Democrats right now are a large unified tent. And you saw it last night. I mean, think about what Joe Biden did. He had, 17 to 20 opponents in the primary. They all unified except for Marianne Williamson. Maybe I don't know if she's endorsed him or not, but almost all of the people in that primary have all come around to endorse him. Then you got Republicans endorsing him. This has been an incredible act of unity by Joe Biden. And so we have a united party that I think reflects the mainstream values of our country and the patriotism of our country. And I think the Republican Party has literally gone over the cliff with Trump. And if and when he loses, their decision will be, do we still want to be out there and less relevant, especially as generations pass, or do they want to get back to being sort of a normal, functional political party again that's less about a cult around one person and more about, mainstream American values? I think that's the big question that will be coming quick.
David Pepper, Ohio Democratic Party Chair, we appreciate the time. Thank you for doing this today, and we look forward to talking again soon, all right?
Hey, great. Thanks. Take care. Call anytime.
Absolutely. You too. David Pepper, Ohio Democratic Party Chair on 1480 WHBC. We'll take a break and be right back. Thanks, David.